All right, well, hi everyone, welcome. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Please feel free to continue grabbing pizza. If you are a student taking this course for credit, please make sure you sign in the front. Does anybody need the sign-in sheet? All right. Okay, well, why don't we get started? I'm Catherine Fody. I'm filling in for Dr. Stressla today. And thank you all for being here on what I know was relatively short notice. Our original speaker for today unfortunately had a family emergency and could not join us. But if you were looking forward to the talk, as I know I was, we'll be trying to reschedule that for spring semester, so stay tuned. Fortunately, though, we have another great speaker lined up for you today. So please join me in welcoming back to the seminar series Dr. John Waterbor. He is a semi-retired but still very active associate professor of epidemiology. He received his MD and MS in epidemiology from the University of Pennsylvania and did his DrPH at UAB, where he also joined the faculty. If you attended the seminar earlier in the semester, you know he's very passionate about injury prevention and control, in particular sports injury prevention and control. Fun fact, his doctoral dissertation was on the mortality experience of Major League Baseball players and was published in the New England Journal of Medicine.
They all died.
So Dr. Waterbor has on a baseball tie for
That's
us today.
my one New England Journal of Medicine publication.
Very impressive.
Thank you. Better than none.
Well, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Waterbor to present sports injury epidemiology and control. And I hear this is interactive.
Okay.
Okay, take it away.
Close the doors. Nobody leaves till I'm done.
All right.
Now, feel free to come up and get pizza, or I guess you have to have your own drink. Okay, so I know some of you from Epi 610 Principles of Epidemiologic Research, and others, a few from the Cancer Epidemiology course, Epi 713. The other course I taught or co-taught for many years was Epi 603, Injury Epidemiology and Control, and I co-taught it for the most part with Dr. Ross Fine. Dr. Fine was a tried and true injury epidemiologist, whereas I was kind of a generalist slanting toward epi methods and cancer epi, but I had an interest in injury epi also. And Dr. Fine, who has a way of, you meet people in life sometimes have a way of persuading you to do things, even if you don't want to. But I really caught my attention, injury. So earlier this semester, I think it was presentation number 1, I did overall injury epidemiology, and sports injury is the topic for today. And let me see if this actually works. It'd be good. Yes, this is a commercial message. So next semester, we are offering Epi 603 Injury Epidemiology and Control. We are, for the first time, co-listing it for undergraduates, PUH 499. That's the temporary number until we see if it catches on as an undergraduate course. Back when we first started teaching injury epi, we didn't have any bachelor's programs, so we haven't been doing that. But I think the topics will interest undergraduates and graduate students alike. So I'm going to review some basics about terminology used in injury epidemiology, which is a little bit different than chronic disease epi, and yet again different between also infectious disease epi. First, if you've been thinking about it, how many of you regularly play a sport, whatever that might be? Nobody.
A sport or active?
All right, we'll enlarge it to active. Okay. And for those who had their hand up, have you been injured, if you are willing to disclose, and in what way, for one?
Stress fracture in my foot running.
Stress fracture, foot running. Anybody else want to volunteer? Okay. Injury epidemiology, again, is a career in the making for someone who has interest. Let's go forward and see what we say about it. Okay, so again, if you came to my first lecture, you already have memorized this. What is injury? A transfer of energy that can be kinetic, which is like a car crash or somebody hitting you over the head. Thermal, that's heat. Chemical, like acid, electrical energy or nuclear energy. Or, part 2 of the definition, removal of oxygen or heat beyond the human body's tolerance. So if you die from smothering, asphyxiation, that's coded as an injury, death. Or if you're stranded in sub-zero freezing temperatures, absence of heat, that's also called injury. Any of those things happen and it impairs body structure or function, and that's what we mean by injury and injury death. In general, doing injury research, we categorize most injuries in one of these two categories. Overuse injuries, like baseball pitchers, and one of my topics for today is of course baseball players. Overuse injuries, you're using the same muscles, the same motions time and time again. Running would be an example if you run every day or often. Then there are traumatic injuries. Trauma means force. Again, could be intentional, could be unintentional. Car crash is a good example. Other background, and this is all leading up to eventually we will get to sports injuries. Catastrophic injuries. Catastrophic from the term catastrophe, which if you look up in Webster's dictionary, kind of a major problem or major issue, like you might say a flood is a catastrophe because everyone is hurt or things die. Catastrophic injuries, again among injury epi folks talking to one another, what they mean is one of these three. Spinal cord injuries. Depending upon the level of your spinal cord injury, effects are variant. Traumatic brain injuries to the head, and third-degree burns. Why they're called catastrophic is that these are three, maybe there's some more, if we think about it, that if you suffer one of these injuries, you might die, part A. Part B is if you survive, often there's not complete recovery from SCI, TBI, or third-degree burns. So your life has changed, not to be melodramatic, but life is not what it used to be, okay? And they can be intentional or unintentional. On that note, intentionality. We always talk about that in injury epi. Intentional means, I think, the dictionary definition. If my intent is to harm myself or harm somebody else, where's Paul? And I do something to myself or to him that's resulting in an injury, that's an intentional injury. Unintentional injuries we used to call accidents. But when Dr. Fine and I taught the course, we had a little piggy bank, and if anyone any of the students used the term accident, they had to put a quarter or some amount of money into the piggy bank. So in injury epi, it is frowned upon to use the term accidents because a lot of people, just in general in the population, if you say accident, a lot of people think that means, oh, that was a bad day, it just happened, that's, who could have foreseen? So in injury epi, epidemiology, of course, is looking for causes of diseases, risk factors. We think, bottom of bullet 2 there, many or most unintentional injuries are predictable and preventable. So if you had a car crash, that's not a good thing. Was that an accident? Well, again, choose your words carefully if you're talking to epidemiologists. Risk factors for car crashes are drunk driving, distracted driving, speeding, poor conditions in the road, maybe a thunderstorm or weather. So there are a lot of contributing causes. And we would not say it was an accident. We would say it's the confluence of maybe 2 or more of those things that caused a crash. Okay. Unintentional injuries, so don't call them accidents anymore, rank about 4th on leading causes of death. Cardiovascular disease, number 1. Cancer usually is number 2. With COVID, things got a little, COVID entered the list and that changed things a bit. But usually unintentional injuries is about 4th on the list of causes of death in the US. I do not have global data here, so there may be big differences in other countries. What are the main types of unintentional injury that cause death? There are two. One are MVCs, motor vehicle crashes, and the second, which you might not think of as injury, but I didn't invent the system, is poisoning. However, one would get poisoned, but poisoning includes drug abuse. So some deaths by poisoning are because your toddler got into your laundry detergent or some other toxin and ate it or drank it and passed away, which is a tragedy. That's not the main part of the numbers. The main part of the numbers is drug abuse. So that's how it's coded, International Classification of Diseases. That's categorized in part of injury. If you go to Americans age 1 through 44, unintentional injury is uno. Is that French or Spanish? It's the number one cause of death, the leading cause of death, because 1 through 44, you're usually too young for death by one of the chronic diseases. That's not an absolute. There is childhood cancer, which is much less common than adult cancers. And childhood cancer, topic for another day, that can usually be successfully treated, and you have a long life at least into the 40s or 50s. The intentional injuries also rank pretty much in the top 10. Many people wouldn't guess, I didn't ask you. Suicide, taking one's own life. While I'm on that note, suicide, Angela Sullivan and David Coombs, who are both work in the School of Public Health, in our Epi 603 course, they give presentations on suicide. One thing I learned from them, I learned many things, just to share. One should not use the term commits suicide, and that gets into a big thing on the internet and in publications. Dr. Coombs and Dr. Sullivan reinforce this: don't say commit suicide. You can say one took his or her own life. The idea there is it makes it sound like a crime, and we looked at actually some different, this is an aside, different states. It was in Alabama where I forget what state it was, where it was in suicide, it was like the mortality statistics, and right up in certain states it was a crime to kill oneself or to commit suicide. So this gets all balled up in like legal things versus, okay, anyway. Intentional injuries, suicide number 10, and ranks higher, which surprises many people, than homicide, taking the life of another. Okay, root sciences of injury control. We will get to sports injuries soon. Epidemiology, as you know, it's a population science. What we want to know in epidemiology is causes, contributing causes, the way that people get a disease or injury. We want to know that just because inquiring minds want to know, as a commercial used to say, but we also want to know contributing causes so that we can plan prevention measures. Okay, that's one of the roots of injury control. The other is biomechanics. So biomechanics, you can see the definition there. Biological muscular activity study of during locomotion and exercise, knowing anatomy, physiology, because we're talking about, when injury, you're talking about usually broken bones, trauma that crushes maybe different organs, that sort of thing. So you need to know kind of the human physiology and also a mixture of engineering. So when we teach the Injury Epi course, we have several guest lecturers, one of them, maybe two, from the School of Engineering, where they have done studies on contracts, studies of car crash injuries, where the idea was they would study car crash, motor vehicle crash data, and often the side impacts was the worst. And I recall hip injuries were very high on the list. Want to know then, can we engineer cars better? So assuming X% are going to crash, can we do a better job? And of course, there's seat belts, there's airbags, but beyond that, okay? So biomechanics is very important. A good friend of mine, Dr. Glenn Fleissig, works at the American Sports Medicine Institute, which is now part of UAB because it's located in St. Vincent's Hospital. And Dr. Fleissig and his group do biomechanics studies and at times work with epidemiologists, including some of our doctoral students in the past, to look at means of preventing baseball injuries is Glenn Fleissig's main claim to fame. And he gets funding grants from Major League Baseball, which is, you know, a company with a lot of money, because baseball and other professional sports, they lose money if our star player that we're paying zillions of dollars, you know, played 10 games, got hurt, and is out the rest of the season. Well, he or she still gets paid. So it's really important, if you're into money making, and I'm not against money making, not my main thing, the idea of injury prevention among people who, if they get injured, a lot of money is lost because now that player is not helping the team. The replacement player is not as good. The team does poorly. Da da da. Okay. Okay. Sports injuries. So we have running injury. Does anyone want to state an injury they got playing sports, including running activity? Yeah.
When I was in marching band, I had, basically my posture was horrible, and
Yeah.
I played baritone, which is a very heavy instrument that's held in front of you, and I had back problems. Yeah.
Did it end your marching band career, or did you just cope with it, or
COVID did that, so.
COVID did that? Anybody else?
I fell from a bicycle.
Okay.
I fell from a bicycle.
You fell from a bicycle? Okay. What happened? Did you break any bone or scratch? Well, you got off easy. Okay. Did you, follow-up question, did you do anything differently after that so you wouldn't fall again?
I didn't ride a bicycle.
You didn't ride a bicycle. Okay, that's one solution. If you get hurt playing baseball, don't play baseball anymore. Okay. Yes, Paul.
Once I tried playing soccer and fractured my navicular bone.
And why did you do that? Now, did somebody like crash into you, a pro player? Or?
Hit the ball too hard.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So when I was like 3 or 4 years old, it was my first time ice skating.
That sounds like a dangerous one. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was.
Face plant?
The other way. I slipped and ruptured my coccyx, which is basically my butt.
Tailbone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have not been ice skating since.
Have you, if I may delve further, are you in therapy for that or anything? About,
No.
you're not going to go back to ice skating, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's a great career that you're not pursuing.
Yeah. I think my hopes and dreams of being a professional ice skater died on that day.
We're gone. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So surveillance data should have had I like case definition is a big thing in EpiMethod. Surveillance, ongoing collection of data on the occurrence or deaths, whatever is the main object of your interest, of new injuries, or in this case, death from injuries, so that you build up a database. There are certainly sports and activities that are known to be, again, more dangerous or higher risk of injury than others. Bullet number 3, we record the good old age, race, gender, etc. And some of the injury epi methods probably more similar to infectious disease epi methods. You know, where you have agent-host environment, and like you do in the basic, like studying tuberculosis and so forth. So a lot of injury terminology is similar. So, from the internet and my own personal experience, I play tennis. I don't play enough to get injured, probably. I do have some, I probably can't have range of motion as much as I would like because I'm right-handed. Anyway, so popular sports injuries, and these are just the ones that I happen to put on the slide. Baseball, shoulder injuries, again, baseball players. Again, I'm a Major League Baseball fan. I'm from Philadelphia, so I follow the Phillies. I also follow the Braves and the Mets and some other teams. I have a little, what do you call it when you email, like you have a group of people, you email one another on, there's a word for that, like on baseball stuff. Major League Baseball players, as an aside, this is an elite group. You know, you have to be really good to be paid a lot of money to play baseball. They play about 10 spring training games. The regular season is 162 games. And then if you're in the postseason, because you were good, there's another 5 or 10, 15 games. You've add this up, you could be playing, if you're like, especially if you're the star player, we want you in every game just about, you're playing 200 baseball games, each lasting 2.5 or 3 hours. So you can imagine, I think, overuse injuries are common. Occasionally in baseball, there's a traumatic injury. Someone crashes into the catcher trying to score from third base, that sort of thing. Okay, so baseball you see there, basketball, ankle, and knee. And it makes sense about what basketball players do and what football players do. Concussions in football. TB is traumatic brain injury. That's a usual term in injury epi. ACL, knee injuries. Soccer, hamstring injuries, also in baseball. Tennis elbow. I haven't had it because I haven't played enough, so that'll tell you. Okay, so those of you, Paul, for instance, who have no career plans in particular and think you might not make it one way or the other, maybe you want to pick something that not everybody chooses. So one, I think you'll probably make it. An injury epidemiologist. Again, maybe some schools of public health teach it more than we do. Some schools of public health don't teach it at all. Like injury, look in their catalog, not there. What is happening now is that grants, like my friend Glenn Fleissig, he gets grants from Major League Baseball. He's not an epidemiologist, but he works with some folks there. Has worked, I think, with Jerry McGuinn in our department at times. Not that you should be out to make money, but you have to have a career if you're sports minded and sports interested. You know, that's I think maybe the main thing instead of money. And you want to study baseball players, football players, or whatever, and get paid for doing it. And you collect data, and you analyze data, and you publish papers, and you get grants. That's kind of an academic, maybe you do some teaching, things to do. Okay, so study by, there are a couple of epi methods points here, but I'll present rather what I've got. Injury epi is not, because it's kind of just semi-accepted, like, is this really epidemiology? Maybe other reasons, and not many people do it, as opposed to heart disease, cancer, stroke, maybe lung diseases. The studies that are done and the data that are published bear scrutiny. That is, sometimes when you read it with your epidemiology training, you read this and say, does this make sense? Like they're trying, but maybe they don't have as much training as they should in data collection. And here's one example. So ICD-10, International Classification of Diseases, iteration number 10, where things are updated. One can get data, of course, without identifiers, age, race, and sex, but not your name, on people injured. And there is, of course, an injury coding system. Your injury is number 321.6, whatever it might be. They published a series of papers, and I won't click on the link there. You can look later. Here's some Truveta study. So I would not present my data this way, but it's not my data, so I left it. To me, it's kind of hard to read. And okay, so it's by color is the main. I don't know if you can read it there. And the orange in the middle is age 14 to 18. I don't know if that's called that purple or violet. That's age 10 to 14. Anyway, it is what it is. Not my data. So that's by age, by sex group, their term. Soccer, football, basketball, and then baseball, softball combined. Male is in the powder blue, and female in, is that hunter green? I like names of colors, but I'm not sure I'm right. Body part affected by injury. So you can see the big chunks there are lower extremity in the middle in green, upper extremity all the way to the right. Now what's kind of taking off our injury hat and putting on like an Epimethods hat, what might you not like from this? We'll get to that. I guess that's the last bullet. So summarizing the graphs I just showed, ages 14 to 18 at highest risk. And remember, these are like cases. I would call them numerators. All sports. Gender, these are what I just flashed before you. More male than female, more white than black. Ethnicity, body part, highest rates of TBI for males football, for female soccer. Face and head injuries, more in baseball. And that's one of the, I think, feared baseball injuries. And a couple of players, their career ended. They were a batter, and a 90 or 100 mile an hour pitch was thrown, and they got hit right in the face. And that's, I mean, a shocking thing. I don't want to experience it myself. Some players, it's not many, but they're written up in the literature. They never, either because of lack of confidence or they just don't want that to happen again. Okay. Beware these findings. They're proportions, not rates. So in epidemiology, rates has a denominator, like an incidence rate mortality rate, of person time at risk. Proportions is what the Truveta, that was like a company, what they published. That is, they got the ICD-10 data on injury, and they said so many of this kind of injury, so many of that kind of injury, so many males, so many female. That's fine, but that's proportions. That is the sum of the, you might say, numerators. What you would want to do, if you knew it, is rates. That is, if I have in my database from ICD-10, I have 10 people who got injured in football, maybe with some specifics listed. I don't know how many football players there were. So, yeah, there's going to be, in their database, there's going to be more football injuries than there are what's an uncommon smell, like bow and arrow injuries, whatever, like how many people do archery. So what is kind of a shortcoming of this data, or again, I would think of it as numerators without denominators. Like the more people that play football, you're going to have more football injuries, even if the risk maybe is not as high as playing something else. But we don't have those denominators. Another thing they did, I have to send them a nasty letter. Injury rates. Well, they tried. This I found not too good either. First of all, when I teach rates, I said it's person time in the denominator, not people. That would be a proportion. So they called it rates. Sometimes, you know, that's a dictionary term, that rates are proportion, proportions are rates, all the same to some people. The problem here is, though, a different problem, that per 100 players, when you express data that way, again, my kind of long example, bullet number 2, if all, I don't know how many are here, 20 or 30 of you are on the team and 3 of you get injured, is it the injury rate proportion 3 out of 30? But wait a minute, some of you are on the team, but you didn't get on the field because we only need 6 people at once. So the idea is, I think an improvement would be person time at risk. So if Nabia, where did she go? There she is. You're not so good in our team, Nabia, so we counted you as the denominator per 100 players, except you're a player that actually didn't play. You're on the bench. So this gets into the Epimethods concept of person time at risk. Your person time at risk was 0 because we only put you in if everybody else like dies or we need another player. Okay, that's that. So my point is, if you want to become an injury epidemiologist and you have epi training from our fine department or from other places, I think there's lots of room to do studies, internal studies, like I don't know how to do it, or I didn't try. UAB has sports teams, and I'm pretty sure they have medical plans, and there's probably an injury database. Maybe you would create it differently because you're an epidemiologist, but there may be things to study and publications to be turned out. Okay, so baseball. Abner Doubleday, there's a controversy, that's the name. Like in a crossword puzzle, who founded baseball? The answer is supposed to be Abner Doubleday in 1890. Whether that's true or not, it's a long time back. The current problem, maybe there are many in Major League Baseball, is our injuries among pitchers, especially starting pitchers. So if you don't know baseball, usually there's a starting pitcher who's one of your better pitchers who pitches ideally at least 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 innings out of a 9-inning game, and then relief pitchers come in to finish the game when the starting pitcher is not doing well, giving up a lot of runs, or is just tired. There are very few these days complete games, meaning a starting pitcher pitches all 9 innings. It happens now and then, not often. One thing that has changed is pitching velocity. Now, I'm not sure if I understand why. When I was a little kid a while back, if you threw a fastball, there's the fastball, the curveball, some other, like there's a screwball, there's a slider. Used to be if you threw a fastball like 90, 92 miles an hour, that's the tops. Now we have some pitchers throwing 100 miles an hour. They still do miles an hour for some reason. I guess that was too much of a chore to change the units. Lots and lots of baseball players, especially starting pitchers, are getting elbow injuries. And I think the Atlanta Braves, who are the most local team to Birmingham, I believe of their opening day starting pitchers back last April. So usually you have 5 starting pitchers. They pitch every 5th day. So I pitch, then you pitch, then you pitch, then you start circle back again. I think 4 of their 5 starting pitchers, somewhere during the first couple months of the season, had elbow problems and were put on the injured list, used to be called the disabled list, had surgery, and they're out for the year. So the 5 pitchers they were mainly depending on, 4 of them are out of the loop for this year. So again, if you can figure out, and we have a Haddon matrix to help us, if you're an injury epidemiologist, and there's a literature, not a big literature, an injury epidemiologist, it's figuring out, okay, why do the pitchers that got this problem, maybe there are other pitchers that seem to be throwing about the same pitches, and they're about the same age, and they're about the same this and that. What's the important difference between the cases and the non-cases of those who could have been on the injured list, but they never did, okay? So this trend. The main injury is called the ulnar collateral ligament. We'll go to, and then there's the UCL. So this is a thing biomechanics people study. So the UCL connects the humerus to the ulna in the arm, so that's in there. And this is the thing that seems to go wrong with a lot of pitchers, more so than 10 or 20 years ago, unless it wasn't recognized. But I don't think pitchers going on the injured list so frequently, I think that's new. So we need to understand causes and then come up with control measures. Okay. So, bullet 2 seems to be from throwing maybe pitchers too far. Now, why are people able to throw 100 miles an hour when in the past I think that was very rare? Don't know the answer to that. Is it better nutrition or something? So again, I like bullet 3, the cases versus the non-cases. So that sounds like that could be like a matched case control study where the cases have the UCL injury. They're the cases, you match them to controls. pitchers of the same age, plus or minus a year or two, whatever it might be, your matching criteria, who have maybe, and you can match on how many innings they pitched in their lifetime, or however you got to think through it, and then figure out what is the antecedent going back now to when they were kids or like sometime in the past. Why did the cases become cases, but their similar buddies didn't become cases? Okay. So what we talked about in my earlier lecture, which we won't go through all the intricacies, is the Haddon matrix. This is, I think, unique to injury epi. Could be used for other things. So the idea is this. This is Dr. William Haddon, who came up with an idea to parcel out, you might say. Think of all the reasons if you're kind of like, I have no clue why this injury is happening. Parcel it out into smaller categories. So this is not a 2x2 table, it's a 3x4 table. So we have pre-event factors in row 1, we have event factors, we have post-event in row 3, and then the columns are host factors, agent and vehicle, and then physical and social environment. So that's kind of like in infectious disease epi, we talk about agent, host, environment. Agent is a tubercle bacillus and so forth. Not to belabor it for overly long, but let's, I guess, read in columns. Host factors, and these are things I just thought up. I mean, some of these may be ridiculous, but some of them may be like, let's look into that. Maybe in column 1, maybe some of the coaches or whatever, if you interview them, say, why did this pitcher get this elbow injury, UCL damage? And maybe the coach would say, making this up, I often noticed that he didn't warm up very much at all. He was like in the dugout and he was eating and he threw a few pitches and then he went into the game. So a host factor pre-event means before the injury happened, doesn't warm up enough. So if you think that's a credible hypothesis, then study it. If you think that's kind of ridiculous or there's other things more logical to study, you would do that. An event factor, still in column 1, the UCL anatomy. So I have no clue. Among the things I'm not an expert on is human anatomy and how it varies. We can go to our medical school and cadaver research. Is my UCL for my age like bigger, smaller, the same? Somebody else's? I mean, everyone has, I think, anatomic limits to how fast you can run or how high you can jump or whatever. So maybe this is like an inborn, like you got this body part, it is what it is for you, and that's that. Still in column 1, self-repair. I mean, part of the, when surgery is done, there's evidence, the UCL damage of the pitchers who need surgery. Evidence, however that may be understood, is this is a slow process and then eventually breaks. Kind of like, not exactly taking a rubber band, elastic band, and putting some tension, and then the next time you look, there's a little bit of a fraying there, and then you do it again, and if you do it 20 days in a row, eventually bingo. Okay, those are host factors. Column 2 is agent and vehicle. Agent is the type of energy, kinetic energy, thermal energy, whatever. The vehicle means the means by which the energy was delivered. So in a car crash, which is not sports injury, in a car crash, the agent would be kinetic energy, and the vehicle would be, vehicle in the other sense of the word, would be a motor vehicle, like a car, a truck, a bus. Okay? So, agent and vehicle. Ball too heavy or too light. Dr. Fleissig told me about this, and I thought this is interesting, and I never thought of it this way. Is there something I should know, but I don't remember? The weight of a Major League Baseball, pretty much the same baseball you could go to a sporting goods store and buy. So baseball players, I think it's 90 feet 6 inches from pitcher's mound to home plate. Is the ball too heavy or too light? And I said, well, how could too light be a problem? He said, well, many people don't think this could be true, but if I could, I'm not a very good pitcher. Maybe one of you would do better. Somebody could stand up here and see where the that camera is or that plaque. throw a ball pretty hard and hit it. Now let me give you a much lighter weight ball, like a wiffle ball. You know, wiffle ball's got holes in it. You would think that should be easier. I would think that should be easier to throw because it's lighter, but I don't think you could throw it real hard and hit that plaque. On the other end, if I gave you a baseball that weighs as much as like a bowling ball of that size, that would be harder. So I think these are biomechanics issues, and they can measure biomechanists can measure torque and angles. They put a bunch of electrodes and say, come on, pitchers, start throwing the ball, and we'll measure this, start again. Here's a different ball. Anyway, there's some thought that the baseball is too light or too small. So Dr. Fleissig, I think, has an ongoing study where he's looking at pitchers throwing, who are not injured now, but looking at the biomechanics of a baseball that's a little bigger, and would that make a difference? Okay. Release, staying in agent and vehicle, event. Event means like as the injury in slow motion is occurring. That's an event factor, like there it goes. Release angle of the pitch too stressful. So again, if you know biomechanics, which I don't, I depend on Dr. Fleissig, is it better to throw your fastball that way or kind of that way or kind of that way? Is that going to impact your injury risk? We'll go to physical and social environment. Physical environment. Physical environment is anything physical you can touch or feel. It's not the host and not the agent or the vehicle. It's other things. So pitchers in Major League Baseball are on a pitching mound. So they're not throwing on level ground. The mound is higher. It's a mound like a bunch of dirt. The mound actually was lowered about 20 years ago. I'm not sure why that happened. It used to be a higher mound, and now it's a little bit lower. Maybe there's something about the angle there. Maybe it's, we're looking for reasons why these UCL injuries are occurring. I think a pitcher is kind of pitching downhill because the mound is sloping down. Physical environment event. We try to play baseball. People have paid their good money. We don't want to dismiss people early. We want to play. Maybe there is extra stress when there's kind of slippery, bad footing. MLB rules too. Okay, social environment, and that's sometimes a hard one to grasp. Social environment means like, a cheering squad or what you're expected to do. Like, I'm your dad and I expect you to run your 20 miles whether you like it or not. Now, it may not be said, but you have the sense. Like, dad's watching and I have this injury or this pain. That's an example of social environment. All these things to be explored if you're an epidemiologist, or some of them. Catchers, social environment, second block, faster and faster, because the catchers are saying, come on, let's get this guy struck out. Okay. And you can see that last one kind of negative. Winning now is most important. Heal your elbow later. Yes, sir.
So in soccer these days, we're seeing a trend of, especially in like highest level professional soccer in Europe,
Okay.
Where different organizations, FIFA, UEFA, are just adding more and more games to the football calendar.
Uh-huh.
So you're getting a situation where really good players are being asked to play a ridiculous amount of games throughout the season, and good teams hardly ever have their starting 11 to play because there's
You
just
can't.
injuries throughout the squad all the time, at all times. So would you say that would belong in like pre-event social environment based on this matrix?
I would. Now, the other thing, that's a great example, thank you. Another thing would be, I don't know how, if they spaced the games closer, like do they play soccer once a week or twice a week?
3 days basically.
Okay,
these days.
because that's another physiology, biomechanics type of thing to know about. Okay, great. We'll finish on the, anyone has to leave early, I'll try to finish. I have about 6 or 8 more slides. So Haddon, there's the Haddon matrix, which we just showed, and then Haddon countermeasures. So the countermeasures are in yellow font, and my example is in the white font. So countermeasures means, okay, take your injury like the UCL injury. Now that you've kind of thought about it a lot and different things that could be true, what do we do? Maybe we should do something immediately and keep studying and then do something better later. So one of the countermeasures, again, these are like the list written in stone, prevent the creation of the hazard in the first place, reduce fastball velocity, for example, reduce the amount of hazard brought into being. Once it starts hurting, put the brakes on. Prevent the release of the hazard that already exists. Modify rate or spatial distribution. Okay, so this one I later say this ain't gonna happen. If you decreased by a lot the distance between the pitching mound and the catcher, I think you could still throw it pretty hard, but it's maybe 60 feet instead of 90 feet. But again, when we get to practicality, that ain't gonna happen in Major League Baseball because all the pitching records and hitting records, you could never compare under the new system with the old system, like how many home runs were hit and all that. So, okay. Separate time and space hazard and that which is to be protected. So one thing, again, rest, and I haven't studied this, are the pitchers who, maybe I didn't have it in my list, the pitchers who are getting UCL injuries were they called upon too many days in a row. I mean, you could add up how many innings or how many pitches they pitched, but another dimension is how many days of rest, you might say. Okay. Pitch counts, that's done. So starting pitchers, occasionally these days, if it's like the World Series, they may pitch 100 pitches. Often pitchers are on a pitch count. They say no matter how good or how poorly you're pitching, well, if you're pitching real poorly, you're out of the game earlier. Even if you're pitching well, that's pitch 70, finish this batter, that's pitch 71, you're out. Okay? So that's something to be tried. Okay, there's a number 7, modify the baseball. But again, anything that's, baseball is one of those sports with more than a century of data. If you change the game too much, it's okay with me, but I don't know that that's going to fly. Strengthen the UCL, is that surgically possible? Begin to counter the damage. Okay. Yeah, I wondered in some medical issues like this is going to break sooner or later, so before it's broken, I don't know if this is medically justifiable, let's go in and strengthen it up so it's not broken. Then, of course, you still have surgery and something to recover from. Okay, the last one, stabilize, rehabilitate, and repair the object of the damage. That's surgery. Tommy John surgery. I'll tell you who that is in a minute. So my big paragraph there, countermeasures, I mean, you can hypothesize or think about, there's 10 or 20 things we could do. Some of them are not practical. Some of them, the league would have to give you permission. They're going to say no. Figure out what you think would work that's feasible to do. So Tommy John was a baseball pitcher in the 70s and 80s and the early 90s. And he was the first pitcher known to have what we now know as ulnar collateral ligament damage. He was a very good pitcher. He went to Dr. Frank Jobe, who is the team physician for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who did surgery, repairing his ulnar collateral ligament. And I think it's the first time it was ever done, at least for a baseball player. I'm not sure why it took that long. It was about a year recovery, and then he pitched for 14 more years, like it worked. So what's happening now in 2025, in the last decade or more, is lots of pitchers are getting so-called Tommy John surgery. So Tommy John is the name of the player who first got it. Should be called Frank Jobe surgery, I think. There be Tommy John. Played for the Yankees and several other teams. So injury control decisions. So you complete a Haddon matrix, figure out all the things that I thought of, and you might think of other things to do in those 3 rows and 4 columns. Agent host environment, again, is from infectious disease epi. What exactly is the problem? Is it the person's anatomy? Is it the weight of the ball, like would get everyone sooner or later? Or is there, and what can we do about it? So we're almost done. The 4 E's. So turns out to be 4 E words or phrases. Sports injuries, like any other kind of injuries, usually maybe causes are multifactorial, a lot of ingredients. And the other issue is, well, I won't use that term. 4 E's seem to be something to keep in mind. Turns out they're just, so with the UCL injuries needing Tommy John surgery, education. Now we'll take the time to do it. Who are we educating? The pitchers, the managers, the owners, okay? But educating whoever needs to be educated, how do we prevent the next case of this? If we have any clue, like what not to do. Like don't pitch 3 days in a row, or don't throw a fastball that hard, but of course that's tempting for players to do, because if I can throw a 100-mile fastball consistently, I'm going to get a big contract. So that has to be kind of a corporate thing. Environmental modification, that might be something like lowering or raising the pitching mound if that matters. Enactment or enforcement, that gets into you're supposed to be on a pitch count, and when I was sick, my assistant manager let you pitch 100 pitches. No, we're enforcing the rules. You're fired, and I hope your 100 pitches, your last 30 pitches didn't hurt. Engineering means building, like something anew. Build something different or in a different way that would make sense. Okay? So in Epi 603, POH 499, if this catches any of your fancy, we will have Dr. Fleissig and a few others. We don't do just sports Epi. Some references. Let me give you a quick pitch. Things we cover in Epi 603 Injury Epi course, taught in this order. Childhood poisonings, drug abuse. This is like causes and control measures. Fires and burns. We have the fire marshal from the state of Alabama, Scott Pilgrim, comes in and talks about that. Drug abuse. We have access to the driving simulator in the 916 building. I think that's 19th Street, where that's owned by the, I think, School of Engineering, where we take a field trip a few blocks away, and we pick someone to sit in the driver's seat, and there's 3 screens in front of you, straight ahead, that way and that way, and you're driving and scenery's going by, and then we distract you. We call you while you're driving. We call you on your cell phone, and we see how many things you hit as you're steering the car into bad areas. We study spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, falls among elderly people. We get into some heavy things at the end, and some from our community assessment folks, domestic violence, suicide, also on the lighter side, maybe occupational injuries, weather injuries. Okay, thank you for your attention. I think we are just about out of time. If anyone has one question or maybe